Hello, kings and queens. Welcome back to another episode of Faith Helps Podcast. And as you can see, I am still going strong with the videos. This is the second episode for my audio listeners. If you missed last week's episode, I have started doing the episodes in audio and visual format. So now you can see me. And I can somewhat see you guys. I can see you guys when you comment, so that's your cue to comment, subscribe. Let me know what you're thinking, what's coming up for you as we do these episodes. Even if it's an old episode, I still want to hear like what's coming up for you guys. And I've appreciated those of you who have reached out and shared some of the feedback and shared some of like your thoughts and the things that have come up for you as you listen to some of these episodes. Because at the end of the day, as I said in the very first episode, I want this to be helpful to you. I want this to be something that you can use to grow and to become a better version of yourself, become your best self, be more mindful of the areas that we need to challenge ourselves in, as well as have confidence in those things that God has placed within us so that we can bring it into fruition and run the kingdom here on earth. Okay? All right. Now, jumping right into it, as you can see, I'm in my office for those who are tuning in via YouTube. I also have an update. I'm officially on Apple Podcasts. Listen, for those of you who kept asking me to get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, I expect to see some views. I expect to see some views. I expect to see some likes, some shares, and some subscribes. Words. I am expecting it because it was a hassle. Like, Apple Podcasts just don't like me. All of these like stipulations and not liking the graphics that I was using that I created myself. It was very frustrating. So it literally took me a full 2 days just to get everything correct so that I can start uploading the things, getting everything in order, and it now is fully set and in order. So you can find it under Faith Helps Podcast with your host Diamond Booth. So if you just type in Faith Helps Podcast, that should come up, or just type in my name. Hopefully you know by now how to spell my name, DYMOND BOOTH. And then you'll be able to find it and listen and subscribe, like, share, okay? And comment, and I want to hear what's coming up for you, whether it's helpful or not helpful. I want to know. So yeah, wanted to let you guys know that that is coming out. I have already uploaded a few episodes. I'm gonna stagger it because I don't want to, overwhelm you guys with all this amazingness all at once. So my plan is to every 2 weeks for the Apple Podcast until you guys are all caught up. I'll be releasing 2 episodes at a time on Thursdays still at 5 p.m. And then once you guys are all caught up with the YouTube family and the Instagram family and the Spotify family, it'll be 1 episode every Thursday at 5 p.m. Right? Okay, cool. One last thing, speaking of my Instagram family, if you are following me on Instagram, you likely saw the post that I did yesterday of my baby, my little plant here, and I just feel the impulse to show you guys. Look how cute she is, and she's still just sprouting. Like, it's just so adorable. It's really amazing to just see things grow, and it's just really cool. I have another plant here too that I was talking to you guys about in the chat. She needs a little grooming, a little TLC, but she's going strong. So, and she got a little clover in there growing. I don't know what's going on, but it's really cool to see things grow. And speaking of growing, I did not know what to call this episode, and that's part of the reason why I came to just sit at my window, because on one hand, whenever I'm looking at this window, I just feel a sense of peace, but I also just like looking outside. I don't like the bugs, but I like outside. I like the fresh air. I just like scenery. I'm a big scenery person. That's something that's helpful for me. If I can't get by a beach or ocean, the second thing I will settle for is just a beautiful scene, or it doesn't matter what type of scenery it is, whether it's just the landscape of the campus or the landscape of where I'm working, or just trees. I just really enjoy it. It's very just nice for me, and very like centering for me, especially when I've been stressed out with clients. This is my little go-to spot. So that's why I'm by my window, and I don't have all the lights on. I don't have the overhead lights on because it's just too much, and I feel like you guys can see me just fine with this natural beautiful sunlight, and you can see this melanin in, right? Okay, so I did not know what to call this episode. I really struggled with to call this episode because there's two topics that were kind of hitting me last night as I was just like laying down and meditating, and I feel like they kind of connect, but they just like kept coming to mind for me. And so I wanted to talk to you guys on these two different themes. One is about labels, one is also about just try. You know, and what I mean by like just try, it kind of comes from, actually I meant to like pull the post-it note off my desk to show you guys, but I have a post-it note on my desk that I wrote maybe 3 weeks ago, and it says, it just like hit me one day when I was reflecting on something with one of my trainees, and the thought was, if you're bad at something, just get better. And I feel like sometimes, especially in this day and age and the culture that we're in, we can become so sensitive about our feelings and our emotions, and we get so offended by things. But sometimes we need things just said to us straight up. If you feel like you're bad at something, just get better at it. Work harder at it. If you feel like you're not doing something well, if you feel like you're failing, get better. Yes, I am all for motivational interviewing, encouraging, inspiration, and uplifting and all that. And sometimes that becomes unhealthy because we get satiated with that, and we don't know how to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and actually do the things that we need to do to get things done and to see a change in our life, right? And sometimes we get stuck in a cycle of needing to feel encouraged and inspired. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself. Sometimes, no, you're not good at something. Sometimes, yeah, you did fail, and you need to like study harder. You need to do whatever XYZ is in order to improve yourself. And lately, this has just been a theme that has continued to come up ever since the episode with Coach Kat, actually. So if you didn't listen to that episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to it. I don't remember off the top of my head which episode that is, but it's a great episode. She was wonderful, and she had so much insight. And I think that a lot of the things that she said is very relevant to the era that today's generation. And the reason I say that is because I see it a lot with my clients and like just the youth that I work with, not just at work, but even in the other settings that I'm in. I see this constant, like perpetual pattern of, I'm not good at it, I give up. Or I'm not good at it, the system or the organization or other people need to change. If I keep not doing something well, then obviously it's not me, it's them. Sometimes it is you. Sometimes you didn't study, and you need to take accountability for that. Sometimes, sorry if it like blacked out, but anyway, sometimes you didn't study. You need to take accountability to that. Sometimes you didn't give your best, and you need to take accountability for that. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is actually stemmed from a conversation I was having with someone about this new, it's not new because I've heard it before, maybe in like 2021, 2022, around that time. But this term of rejection sensitive dysphoria. As far as I know, it is not yet in the DSM. However, it's a term that's been getting thrown around quite a bit. And basically what it speaks to is an inability, which I don't like even using the word inability. I would rather say a low tolerance for being able to regulate your emotional responses and reactions to perceived, I won't say it's actual failure or actual rejection, it's perceived rejection, it's perceived failure. And I have some personal feelings about this term. I have some personal feelings about terms in general. Actually, one of the things that I love about working where I am now is that we don't diagnose. We don't give diagnosis. We can talk about diagnosis with you if you want, but we don't give you a diagnosis. And I like that we don't do that, because sometimes I feel like we focus too much on labels and titles and the diagnosis, and we don't focus on resolving the issue connected to whatever the label is describing, because that's all a diagnosis is. It's just a fancy term to describe what you're experiencing, feeling, or going through, or how you're behaving. That's all it is, right? And so don't get me wrong. Labels, diagnoses can be helpful. And even when we think about the term rejection sensitive dysphoria, there's a ton of literature that talks about like how beneficial it is and how validating it is, and its connections to ADHD and ADD and anxiety and bipolar. Like, it's connected to a bunch of different things, right? And it can like encompass perceived rejection or perceived failure in multiple areas, not just like in like rejection in relationships, but it can also reflect on perceived rejection when it comes to academics. So if you're like failing a test, or you didn't pass the class, or if you didn't get the scholarship you applied for, you didn't get the job that you are pursuing, or if you are an entrepreneur, you started a business and it's not succeeding the way you envisioned for it to. All of this can kind of be encompassed under this term. And I won't get into the controversy like of the diagnosis itself, but what I actually want to use to kind of segue into a larger point is what I feel is the issue with labels in general. And in this context, I'm saying that diagnoses are a label. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that yes, it can be helpful. It can be very validating. For my intellectuals, it can be really nice to have a way to conceptualize and articulate what you're going through, and to be able to name something without having to constantly just describe all of your symptoms. You can say, oh, I have this, or I have been diagnosed with this, or this symptom is evidence of this. Like, it can be helpful for that and for communication purposes, and it can make things easier to explain. And I also acknowledge even I have done that. There's been times when I said I've used like the term anxiety, depression, suicidality, because those are things that I've experienced. I also recognize that they are terms to describe situations, feelings, behaviors that I experience. It's a way to describe the symptoms, right? My issue with diagnoses is that sometimes we over-identify with them, and we get into this pattern of I have ADHD, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have bipolar, I have schizophrenia, I have this, right? And don't get me wrong, yes, sometimes certain diagnoses need more serious attention. Great, cool, got it, okay? That's not what I'm saying, that you don't need them. I'm saying that while there's some good, there's also some not so good things about them. For me and my house, and for this platform, because it's Faith Helps, it's the connection of spirituality and therapy. Something that is important to me is to acknowledge that even a diagnosis, because it is a label, attempts to rename you something that God didn't call you. I hear a lot of times, and more often than not, whether it's on social media, whether it's in conversations with people, whether it's just even joking around with my friend groups, I constantly hear this, oh, my ADHD is this, or oh, my anxiety is this, oh, because of my insert diagnosis, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough for this, or I'm not able to do this, and I have this, and so this is why I treat people this way, or I have this, and this is why I respond to people in this way. And sometimes I feel like we get so, and we indulge almost in that, or we get so hyper-focused, indulge wasn't the right word, we get so hyper-focused on that we allow it to become us, and we forget who we actually are. We forget who we're actually created to be. We forget all the great things that we are capable and able to do. We forget all the things that we have the power and the capability to change. And sometimes we pacify people when we try to change the situations around them, as opposed to challenging them to take accountability for the ways that they can change their situation, or the ways they can improve a behavior that they're seeing that they do, or a pattern that they see that they do in relationships that they don't like. And instead blaming it on this and blaming it on that, what do you need to do to make the changes that you want to see, right? And so the other reason, kind of from this more spiritual perspective, is number one is the fact that it's leaving you, it's renaming you, basically. It's running the risk, I'll say, of renaming you, because now you're identifying as something that is not consistent with what God has called you. And that's the whole plan of the enemy, is to still kill and destroy, insert your identity. Because if I can get you to not know who you are and be confused about who you are, my job is done. I ain't nothing else to worry about. You're not going to be a threat to me. If I get you to forget who you are and who you were called to be, I get you off your purpose. I don't have to worry about you being a threat to the kingdom. I don't have to worry about you fulfilling all the things and accessing all the amazing things that God has stored up for you. You ain't no threat. Please. So if you think about it from that perspective, then you can kind of take a step back and go, I see why this could become a problem if I'm relying on it too much, or if I'm starting to use it almost as an excuse to not change the things that I can. And when I think about change, I typically teach my clients to think about the situations in their life in the context of like these boxes of control. There's 3 boxes in our lives of control. There's one box that are only the things we can control ourselves. We can control our actions, our behaviors, what we say, what we do, how we respond, how we react, what we choose to indulge in, what we choose to restrain ourselves from. We can choose whether we go to therapy, don't go to therapy. We can change whether we decide to eat healthy or eat junk at McDonald's every day, right? The second box are the things that other people control. Other people control how they respond, react, treat you. Other people control what they say and do. Other people control how they want to perceive or understand whatever it is that you've said to them, right? Other people control that. And you can't control them. You can't control what they do. And then the third box in our life of control is things that no one can control. No one can control the weather. No one can control whether or not a natural disaster hits right now. No one can control whether or not the power and electricity just all like shuts down and goes out and is no longer a valuable source, right? Those are like some of the things that no one can control, right? And sometimes it's good to take a step back and we're experiencing something in our life that we're not liking, or a pattern that we're not liking. It can be good to ask yourself, what box of control is this in? Is this something that is in my control? Let's using the example of diagnosis. If I have a diagnosis, is in my control how I want to go about handling that? Is my decision of whether or not I want to seek medication or seek therapy or seek physical therapy, because not all diagnoses are just mental. Some of them are more medical. It's my choice whether or not I want to change my eating habits. It's my choice and in my control if I want to seek support and community. Maybe I don't have that in my family. I can't control them. That's outside of my control. But I can choose who I do want to associate with. I can choose who I decide to devote my time and my energy with. I can choose the boundaries that I have. I can't choose whether or not they're going to respect them, but what I can do is reinforce them and hold up my end of the bargain of what I say I'm going to do if they don't honor my boundaries. If I say that I'm going to remove myself from their life, then that's what I need to do in order to follow up with the boundary that I'm setting. So when it comes to kind of where I started with this whole episode, the idea of if you're bad at something, then get better. What I'm speaking to is if you feel as though that there's something that you're not liking, something that is either, whether it's within your behavior or your emotions or your habits or your surroundings or your environment or the people you're connected to or your job or your situation or your skill set, whatever it is, if you're not liking it, ask yourself, is it within my control? 9 times out of 10, it's within your control to change that situation. Yes, some things won't be in your control. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what is in your control. Maybe there's not like a lot of things that you can do, but what do you have control over? And what steps can you take to start gaining control back over those aspects of your life that you feel like are dysregulated? Everything is an option. I tell clients that all the time when they come into therapy. This is an option. We're not a court system, so you don't get mandated to us. It's an option to come in here, and it's an option to decide whether or not you're going to show up. I can be here and I can be present with you, and I'm going to give you my 110%, but what I won't do is keep giving you 110% and you're not giving nothing. Baby, you're going to have to meet me halfway. We're not sitting here doing that, because that's a waste of my time and your time, and it's a disservice to me as well as a disservice to you. Because if I'm allowing you to just sit here self-loathe and continue to make decisions and keep patterns that are unhealthy to you or toxic to you, then I'm enabling you to settle for a version of yourself in a lifestyle that is less than what you deserve and can have if you lay hold of the choices and lay hold of the things that are within your control and actually start following through with them. Will I cheer you on and help you and help find the resources so that you can do that? Absolutely. I got you, girl. I got you, boy. I got you. But you have to decide that, you know what? I want to change this. I don't like this. I want to get better at this. I want to get better at managing my diabetes. I want to get better at managing my manic episodes. I want to get better at managing my inattention or my intolerance for certain social interactions. I want to get better at that. Let's talk about how you can get better at it. I'll coach you through how to get better at it. But you got to meet me halfway. You have to want it. I can't make you want it. No one in this world can make you want anything for yourself. You're going to need to want it. No one can make you want to be better. No one can make you want to have a better lifestyle or a better experience of life. You're here. you might as well make the best of it, baby. You might as well. All right. So let's do that. Okay. And so what I'm kind of getting at is being confrontational about the things that you don't like that are happening, or that you do, or whatever your circumstances. If you don't like it, let's confront it. And that can look like various different ways. Like maybe that looks like therapy. Maybe that looks like getting a counselor or a life coach. Maybe you aren't feeling ready for that one-on-one interaction. Maybe you want to do group counseling, or you want to join a support group. In this day and age, you have a wealth of options. You can do online, you can do in person, you can do virtual, you can do retreats, you can do it. You just got to Google search it. That's all. Maybe for you, confronting it looks like starting to write down the exercise plan. Maybe knowing yourself, you know that I'm gonna write down the exercise plan and I'm not gonna follow it. Maybe you need to get a coach. Maybe you need to get a personal trainer. There are a bajillion personal trainers. I feel like there's so many personal trainers nowadays. Heck, at one point I was trying to be a personal trainer, and then I realized I don't like dealing with money and people and no showing on me, and I have to chase them down for why I didn't get paid for the session they didn't show up for. That was too much for me. It wasn't my forte. So whatever it is, coming back to the point, whatever it is that you need to do to confront it, make that plan. Like I was saying with exercise, maybe it's personal trainer, maybe it is you start off small. It doesn't always have to look like, investing a bunch of money if you aren't at that point yet with like being able to get a personal trainer or joining a gym membership. There are on YouTube. YouTube is free. On YouTube, look up Mazi Arias, look up Squat University, look up, just type in workouts. I'm forgetting the name. This is this one really cool personal trainer who does free YouTube live sessions, and they're like all dance workouts. If you are like me, you love to dance and dancing is your therapy, that's what you can do as a form of exercise, as a form of wellness, and also as a form of emotional regulation. My honors thesis was on reducing levels of anger in children and adolescents. And in the research, the intervention that we did was dance as a form of therapy. And for majority of the participants, they experience a reduction in their instances of either aggressive acts or feelings of anger and symptoms related to anger and emotional dysregulation by the end of like engaging in session after session of dance therapy. And so dance can be your form of confronting whatever it is that you're wanting to change. It can help you regulate your emotions. Another thing that's really big, and I'm planning to talk way more about this, is your diet and what you're eating. And when I say diet, I'm not talking about like those fad diets. I'm talking about like, what is your lifestyle and your relationship with food? How are you using food? What are you putting into your body? Many people don't know this, but a lot of your mental health is connected to what you eat. Food can impact, and nutrition can impact so much how you're cognitively functioning, how you're emotionally functioning. Literally, I've had this conversation with like many of my clients who are more on the holistic end of how they want to handle the symptoms that they experience. And we did a deep dive into like the different nutrition that they can integrate into their life and into their diet to experience a change in their symptoms and experience a reduction in their symptoms. And so that is what I want for you guys. That is what I want for you guys to be able to experience. But it takes doing the research. As I said, you don't always have to hire somebody. If you can, great. Invest in your health, invest in your wellness, just as much as you invest in them Jordans and invest in alcohol to turn up every weekend. You can invest in your health and your wellness and having a better life for yourself. Maybe confronting it for you looks like being more intentional about your spiritual growth and your connection with God. Maybe it looks like meditating more or praying more. Maybe it looks like stepping aside and away from people. I think sometimes isolation gets a bad rap because everyone's like, oh, you're isolative, that's not healthy. Da-da. No, sometimes you do need to isolate yourself. Sometimes you do need to disconnect. And that's another thing that kind of comes along with what it can look like to confront it and to start making changes and getting better at accessing a life and thriving in a lifestyle that you deserve and can have, and that is available to you if you so choose. For example, social media content. If you notice, majority of the time I post and I dip when it comes to social media. And I also became way more intentional about hitting that unlike button. It made me feel uncomfortable, or just don't suggest posts like this, whatever, because you have to be mindful about what you're ingesting. Not just what you're ingesting, what you eat, but also what you're ingesting through what you hear, what you see, what you're taking in, what you're thinking about and ruminating on. I know this generation that is coming up right now are really into this doom scrolling. Okay, I'm glad that you named it. I'm glad that you labeled it. I'm glad that you acknowledge that you struggle with it. What do we need to do to change it? Do we need to delete the app? Delete the app. Tough, I know. Delete it. If you feel like with your level of tolerance is that you just need to remove certain certain accounts that you're following, remove those accounts that you're following and don't follow them back, and don't like refollow them. Don't seek them out. Don't check up on seeing what's going on in this page. You don't need to know. Why are you sitting here watching them live their life more abundantly instead of living your own, and you're not doing what you need to do and taking the steps that you need to do to confront the things that you need to confront, right? And so when it comes to like being mindful of some of those things, reducing media use, not just on social media, but also like TV, reducing your use of even what you're listening to. If you're listening to music that's very just down and sad and hopeless and depressing, and it doesn't inspire you or motivate you, maybe it validates some of what you're feeling, but listening to that nonstop is not healthy. At some point you have to make a change because you're ingesting that and you're feeding those seeds. Think about everything that you receive and take in as a seed. Do you want the seed to grow? Do you want the seed of I have no reason to live to continue to grow? Being transparent and open, I used to listen to a lot of songs that spoke about not wanting to live anymore, and not even finding life, and feeling like just wanting to disconnect from the world. I went through like this whole era of that's all I listened to, because that's all that felt validating for what I was going through at the time. I'm like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. What I didn't realize is that all it was doing is growing this plant and this seed in my life of not wanting to live, feeling like everything is too much, feeling like I want to disconnect and disappear all the time. And so I had to make the change of being more mindful about what am I taking in, what am I listening to. If you're someone who needs to see or hear a celebrity do it before you do it, cool. Majority of the multimillionaires and these people that we see as being so successful and thriving or whatever, some of the things when you listen to their interviews, they talk about having to make changes about what they were listening to and being more intentional about listening to motivational, inspirational, and uplifting things. That is a change that you can make. If maybe you don't struggle with social media, maybe music is your struggle, and you need to be more mindful about what you're taking in that way. But basically have some boundaries over what you're allowing in, and also have boundaries about who you're allowing in. Maybe there are certain people in your life that shouldn't have as much access to you as they do. For me, I've become very intentional about after 8 o'clock, you can't reach me. No, you can't. Why? And there are a select few of people who can reach me after 8. Otherwise, I will respond to you in the morning. If it's not an emergency, no one's dying, you're not out on the street, need shelter after 8, I have to check out, and I need to do that in order so that I can show up as the best person possible the next day when I come into work with my clients, or when I'm showing up for my family, when I'm showing up for my core people and my loved ones, or when I'm showing up through my nonprofit. I need to have that time to disconnect from people, and sometimes from everyone, and that's okay to have those moments to do that so you can recharge your battery, and then being able to step fully into whatever it is that you need to handle and confront the next day, right? And when it comes to like the boundaries and the people that you're allowing in your life, sometimes you need to seek out certain people to have more access to your life, like a mentor. For example, my mentor, Brother Shannon, can reach me anytime. If I miss a call, I call him back. And I already know I can reach out to him anytime. And some of my lowest moments when I needed to reach out to him, he was there. Text, phone call, whatever. Show up, pop up, roll up, whatever. Let me clarify, because some of y'all are going to drag me for this. When I say roll up, I am talking about physically pull up in your car at someone's address. I heard you. I heard y'all getting ready to respond about roll up. What? Been delivered from that. Anyway. As I was saying, getting a mentor, welcoming more healthy relationships into your life. Sometimes God is not bringing in healthier people into your life because you haven't decluttered yourself from the people who are taking up space and taking up your time and taking up your energy, and filling your mind and with foolishness, but also draining you, and they're parasitic relationships that you're allowing to drain you, and because you're giving off that, you aren't able to pour into those healthy, godly relationships, or just those relationships that motivate you, inspire you, and push you, and challenge you to do more and want more for yourself, and to confront things that you need to confront, right? So being mindful of stuff like that. I would also even mention like energy drainers is something to be aware of, and one way of confronting whatever it is that you need to confront and just getting better at whatever you need to get better at, can be eliminating the energy drainers in your life. Social media can be an energy drainer. Yes, sometimes the things can be motivating, inspiring. 9 times out of 10, something during your 5 minutes on Instagram is going to be unhealthy, toxic, or just a waste of time, energy, and attention and creativity. Some other ways to kind of remove energy drainers. So I mentioned decluttering your life when it comes to like people, but also your environment can play another role and impact on how you're feeling and how you're coping with things, how you're coping with your symptoms, how you're coping with whatever you're going through. So having an environment that feels safe, comfortable, secure, and stable is important. And also having an environment that you really like. One of my who has become a very dear friend to me, Leah Bett, she's really big on aesthetic, and I love her office. Her office is the most fun, pleasant space to be in, and it's very pink because pink is her thing, and I love just going in there because there's an energy, not just about her, but even about how she arranges her spaces. That's just so beautiful and healing, and it just feels good, right? It just feels good. Gotta get my Tabitha in there. It just feels good. So I think that I know that it can be very helpful to be intentional about how you are arranging your space, cleaning up, having a day that you clean up every week, Sundays or Saturdays. It rotates depending on what I got going on the weekend. I have chaos control, which is basically a deep clean of my entire apartment and all the spaces and areas in my apartment. And so even the puppies, Kenyan Kobu, know when I say chaos control, they already know. They get hyped. I think they just get excited because of the inflection in my voice. but basically what it means is, let me get some things in order. Let me make my physical space more stable, safe, secure, comfortable, so that I can be able to have a clearer mind. And a lot of times your environment is reflective of what's going on internally. So if your room is chaotic, 9 times out of 10 you probably feel some of that chaos internally as well. So that is one way to kind of remove some of those energy drainers. Another thing is not reminiscing on the past. Sometimes our mind is so powerful. Sometimes we get so stuck in reminiscing on past things, and we allow that to kind of just pull us away from being present. But it also causes us to ruminate on negative things sometimes, or things that have passed, and we're not focusing on the future and the here and now and the things that we can do. And that can sometimes be an energy drainer, because then next thing you know, you've been reminiscing about the past for 2 hours, and those are 2 hours that you could have used to done some form of healing or some form of creativity. Creativity can be really healthy for you and very healing. Art therapy is a thing for a reason, and it has been shown to be beneficial for a wide range of symptoms and experiences, whether trauma, whether emotional dysregulation, whether neurological disorders. It can be so helpful. So accessing that creativity, it doesn't have to look like painting. It can be charcoal, it can be pencils, it can be making a song, it can be sculpting, it can be collaging, it can be anything, but accessing some of that creativity. And I would say one last thing is that can be an energy drainer is faking, aka chameleonism is what I sometimes call it. Be you. It's going to drain all of your energy trying to be someone that you're not, and trying to people please, and do and be someone that everyone else wants you to be. You're not going to be able to please everyone else. So it's important for you to refocus on, who do I want to be for me? What do I want for me? And let me be authentic in that, because trying to shapeshift it's exhausting. It's exhausting, and it's a waste of time, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to face the real you, the authentic you, at some point in your life, and be intentional about how you're going to access that version of you, and how you are going to validate that version of you, so that you can start walking in your truth. So don't waste your time with all that other stuff. And even when it comes to the issues with chameleonism, I think another thing that causes us to start faking who we are is because we constantly compare ourselves. If you didn't hear the episode I did, that I did like almost 2 or 3 episodes in a row, and all 3 episodes are about comparison and thieves of your joy. Go back and listen to all 3, because they're so important, and I think they're very valuable to take a moment and be thoughtful about, okay, how do I need to maybe take a step back, and instead of focusing on what they got going on, what they are doing, and what this person has done, and how this person acts, and how this person dresses, what is true to myself, and how can I also show some gratitude and gratefulness for what I do have going on with me, and what I do have opportunities for, and what I can accomplish, and what interests me, you know, not following what everyone else is. Like, choose the narrow path, baby. Be unique, be beautiful, okay? But those are just things that I think can be valuable. I also would even say, like, just a few other like tips is, when it comes to making this transition and starting to confront the things that you need to confront, be intentional, as well as be willing to plan it out, create structure. Making an overnight change doesn't always go smoothly. Write out your steps and make sure that they are smart steps. So being specific about your goals, making sure that how are you going to measure whether or not you've met that goal and met each, you know, sub step to getting to whatever the ultimate goal is. Being realistic and ensuring that it's achievable. Is it relevant to who you are and your authentic self and what you authentically feel called to do and want to be able to accomplish in life. And be mindful of your time. Like, get better at time management, learn more about healthy time management, and create those steps, create that plan, and start making steps forward to just get better, to just be better, to not settle, to not self-loathe, to not give up, but to confront the things that you need to confront, to be accountable and hold yourself accountable for the things that you need to hold yourself accountable for, and to pursue more if that's what you're wanting in your life. Cool beans? All right, I'm out. Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Faith Helps Podcast that is not just on YouTube now, it's not just on Spotify now, but it is also on Apple Podcasts. And those of y'all who were like bugging me about getting on Apple Podcasts, you better subscribe. You better subscribe and you better listen to all of it. Because it was work. Anyway, peace out, guys. And if nothing else, please remember, love yourself, grow, confront the things that you need to confront, take accountability. If you're not good at something, just get better at it. Focus, study, learn, make the changes that you want to see happen, okay? And if nothing else, remember, faith helps. Peace out.